Hello and welcome to this edition of School Beat. There are few partnerships more important than that between families and schools. Research shows that when families are engaged in their children's education, students get higher grades, they have better attendance and behavior, they complete more homework, and have a more positive attitude toward education. In fact, the Seattle School District places such a high priority on strengthening school, family, and community engagement that it is one of 3 key goals of a new strategic plan: to ensure each school's culture supports equitable outcomes in student learning through a positive, safe, and healthy environment; to support proactive and transparent communication with all stakeholders, to foster trust and collaboration, and to build partnerships among students, families, staff, labor partners, and the community to support academic success. Here now to help us learn more is Bernardo Ruiz, Director of School Family Partnerships and Equity and Race Relations for the Seattle School District. And welcome, Bernardo. Good to have you here. Let's talk about this whole issue of family engagement and really what it means.
For us in Seattle Public Schools, family engagement means that we work with our families as equal partners in the education of our children, with the ultimate goal to increase the student academic achievement for every child that comes into our care.
So how do you go about doing that and making that happen?
We go about doing that in many different ways. One of the avenues that we have taken that is research-based is the work of implementing the 6 types of involvement framework from Johns Hopkins University. And we also have a myriad of strategies to engage linguistically, ethnically, and socioeconomically diverse families, as well as our more affluent families across the district, because we truly believe that when families are engaged in their children's education, student academic achievement increases for all children.
Let's talk about the framework and the 6 types of involvement that you mentioned, and I'll walk you through this and you can explain, really what's the essence behind all of that. Let's take a look at student learning. What's the focus there?
For us, student learning is the most crucial goal on the whole framework because it is creating a paradigm shift on the old way of seeing family and community engagement to the true way of engaging families in meaningful ways that support student academic achievement. So the way we see student learning is we provide families with the tools and the strategies for them to support student learning at home, at school, and in the community. Because we know that research states that student learning takes place everywhere, all the time, from cradle to career. And so if a lot of the families that come to me or come to our office, they say, if you tell me what our kids are learning and you give me examples of how I can help them at home, I will make sure that every day I set up a time to ensure that my child is accomplishing those goals.
Families support their students.
We are working together with families and to ensure that we provide them with the supports that they need in order to be successful families and parents in their homes.
And what does that mean?
That means we have a family support program that works with families that are struggling or that have difficulties, and they do case management with those families and ensure that the children's needs are met. It's a valuable program that we offer in Seattle Public Schools to ensure that all the barriers for learning are taken away from the kids. So when the kids come into our classrooms, they are ready to learn.
Communication, school and at home.
Communication is crucial.
Yeah.
You can never over-communicate. But the real paradigm shift also with communication is that it must be two-way and meaningful. A lot of the times before I was able to join the office, the communication was only one way, and it was in a sense, kind of like a talking head talking at families about what we were going to do. Just the district talking to families. But right. Under the leadership of Superintendent Banda, we have created a culture that fosters that two-way communication, that we engage the families in the decision-making process, because we truly believe we're much smarter working together than if we were working only individually as a district making decisions.
From the parents and the students.
Yeah, and it's crucial because if we don't have the buy-in from families, it's really harder for us to implement things that are good for children. But when families really understand what they are getting into and they support it, then the children also know that education is a value and that their families are behind it and they get behind it as well.
Having a welcoming environment at a school.
Welcoming environment is crucial because we have in Seattle Public Schools very, very diverse student
What was
population.
it, 129 different languages?
127 different languages,
127?
yes.
Whoa.
And we see that as one of our strongest assets. So when other districts across the nation see that as a barrier, as a challenge, we see that as that's really what makes Seattle special. And making sure that we welcome every single family into our schools, that when they walk in, they say, I belong here. This is my hub. And we have great examples about schools putting pictures of families and kids in their hallways. So when they have a family math night or a literacy night or a family event, kids take their friends from their neighborhood and say, this is my school because look, my uncle is there, my mom is there. And that really creates a sense of, I belong here.
Right, and buy-in.
And buy-in.
And you feel a sense of home and a connection
correct.
to it. School decision-making and advocacy.
That's a very important point. We want our families to partner with us in making decisions that impact our children. We have several committees and several ways in which families can be participatory members of the community. We have a parent advisory committee to the superintendent that guides my work. We have PTAs that also make sure that families are engaged in their schools. They have building leadership teams. They have student information teams. They have many ways that families can formally or informally become part of the decision-making process.
And that community collaboration.
Community collaboration, we know that we cannot do this work alone. That cliche that it takes a village to raise a child is also the same in education. It takes a village to educate a child. And we should not be doing this work alone. And partnering with community members in specific ways to ensure that their work is aligned with our goals has created a huge impact in student learning.
You know, we mentioned the fact that 127 different languages here in the Seattle School District. The school district population is growing. One thing that I know that is important to you is that people understand this is just not for diverse cultures, it's everybody.
Yeah, and that's what research says. If we look at the research from Harvard University, Vanderbilt University, and Johns Hopkins University, it states that every single family who is engaged in their children's education is benefited by that action. And by working together with the schools, student academic achievement increases, attendance increases, discipline problems decrease, and a really cool thing that happens also as a byproduct is that teachers feel more comfortable and stay longer in the profession because they feel supported by families because families buy in and they know that we have the best interests of children at heart.
Speaking of Johns Hopkins University, you were just there not too long ago speaking at a workshop as part of the National Leadership Conference, National Network and Partnerships in Schools. Tell me about, you did a presentation there. What was the focus?
Yeah, the focus was actually in communication, and we were able to showcase the great things that are happening in Seattle Public Schools that don't happen in isolation. Even though we have our Department of School Family Partnerships, all the work that we have done and the foundation that we have created for meaningful, strategic, and intentional school family partnerships is a team effort by the district. So we presented at the national level on what it takes to make that happen systemically. So when kids come into our care, regardless of what school they come from or what city, they know that they're not gonna have random acts of engagement, but it's gonna be a systemic approach that is really intentional about working together with families to increase academic achievement.
And has this become a model around the country?
One of the things that is becoming a model is our family university, and is a 10-week course that we do with families. We did it last year in partnership with Seattle University. We had several families graduating with the classes were at Seattle U, and it was really cool because we had families that had PhDs and we had families that had never gone to high school. Really? But when they walked into a 122-year-old university, like everything changed. And the conversations that they were having were really in depth, and they worked together to ensure that when they graduated, they create a support program for their school communities.
And what were they talking about?
We're talking about everything along the continuum from engaging with your child's teacher in a meaningful way that advocates for a child effectively, to engage in the legislature to ensure that we have adequate funding for public education. And in the middle, we teach about the data, how to read the data, what are some of the key things that families can do once they have the data? They have a very different conversation with their schools once they know what to say. So we teach that to families as well. We also teach our families how to run meetings, how to facilitate workshops, how to do conflict resolution, and to understand the educational system so they can navigate it in a very meaningful way, and in turn they can teach other families how to do it. Our true goal is that in 3 to 4 years we have trained so many families, and these families are exponentially training other families, that we change the culture of Seattle Public Schools to a true collaboration with our families that supports student learning.
Well, on that note, let's take a short break. We're going to put some information up on the screen here so folks can find out how they can get involved in supporting the schools and the students. So we'll be right back. We continue now with our conversation about schools and family partnerships in the Seattle School District. And we're joined now by 2 staff members who are very involved in all of this. With us is Margo Siegenthaler. She is a training and outreach specialist. Also with us is Mohamed Roble. He's with the East African Community Liaison for the school district. You work with many in the communities there and also other African community members as well. Good to have you both here. Well, tell me a little bit about the work that you do, Margo, and this whole family engagement action team and how that works.
Okay. Well, what I do is help develop a system for schools to design plans and establish their family engagement action team so that they can do very intentional and systemic work with families, so that we can be more effective than we have been in the past, because we're designing plans that are really comprehensive and reaching every family in the school.
And this is work you've been doing for quite a while now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many years? About 18 years?
Yeah, about 18 years. I was able to do this when our district began the work with family engagement action teams at BF Day Elementary School, and I was able to take a lot of what I learned there to help other schools.
How have you seen it evolve to really make it work?
I think that a big change that has evolved over the years, is that schools and families are beginning to see family engagement as an instructional strategy, so that what the teachers are doing in the classroom can, if the families understand that or pieces of that or the essence of that, they can support that at home. And so a lot of it is helping families establish a routine time and place to do work with children, and then understanding what strategies they can use that'll complement the classroom learning.
Well, Mohamed, you work with many in the African community and East African community as well. Tell me the different countries of the folks that you work with.
And the countries I work mostly, they come from East Africa, but also I work some other African countries. But the majority I work with East African, they are Somalis, Ethiopian, Eritrean, Djibouti, and also Oromo. And sometimes I work with the Kenya and Sudan, they are also East African.
What is the challenge, I guess, in doing this type of work and reaching those different communities and bringing them in to be engaged?
And really, East African, countries, mostly they are new refugees, they come here. Most of them, they come with a background of lack of education. They have civil wars, and some family, they live in refugee camp. And when the refugee come, they didn't have opportunity to go work. The kids that we're having, mostly they come, they born maybe, and they come for a refugee camp, for example, like Somalia, they have civil war since 1990. Families that we are working, they come for a refugee camp, and refugee camp, they didn't have basic education. Mostly, the country who offer it, hosting, they provide only for food, and United Nations, they give, settlement program, they wait. While they waited, they didn't have opportunity. So the family who come from East Africa, mostly, they didn't have, the kids, they didn't have it, any basic education. When they come here, we work very hard, and Seattle Public School, really, they've done a lot of work. Seattle Public School is different from other districts. We have, Seattle Public Schools, the students, they go for that program, and they stay like 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, and they learn the skills, they learn the academic, education, and then they go regular schools, which really, Seattle Public School, very good opportunity for us, to have a special program.
Do the parents in those communities, how did they see education for their children? Did they value it greatly? They want it for their children?
Really, all the parents, they value the education of the kids. But sometimes some parents, if they didn't have education, for them, they want to do better than what they are. But sometimes they didn't understand the system. Even, those who come from, educated family, when they come here, American system education is different from other countries. Right. And the parents, they want to learn, but we are the one with the Seattle School, particularly in our department. We are responsible how we engage the families who are not coming to school, who are not understanding the American system. It's our duty. We contact with them in the schools, we contact them in the community, and we teach them how the American system working. For example, in a lot of other countries, they have only staff there, they have only a principal and teachers only. In here, we have so many other staff, and they work in a lot of different work duties. We teach them how the stuff there is available in here, how it's different from other country, and how important the family engagement, how you involve your kid.
Yeah, I think most of us that live here, we take for granted these types of things. But when you come from another country and a different environment, it's a challenge.
It is. And actually, that's what I think the family engagement action teams are so crucial, because these are formal structures in our schools that are composed of principals, somebody with decision-making ability, teachers, because we're linking everything to student academic achievement, families, because they are letting us know what are some of the key things that they need to in order to better support their kids, and also support staff and community members. So these family engagement action teams look at their school improvement plans and their goals, and they design very specific strategies on help the school meet those goals. And also for engagement. So when Mohamed goes to the schools and they look at the data, then Mohamed poses a question on what are you specifically doing to engage the Somali community in your school? What are you specifically doing to reach out the Latino community? What are some of the key points on the data? What does the data tell you? And how can we intentionally and strategically create plans to support those families so we support our children?
Right, so you're not just working with the families, you're challenging the schools
That's
as
correct.
well to reach out to those families to make sure that they're adequately served. I want to ask you, Margo, and also you too, Mohamed, what does this work mean to you?
Well, let's see, as a parent, I have 2 children that went all the way through Seattle Public Schools, and we parents grow with our children, so we're kind of going through all the grades with them. And it was always exciting every step along the way, and it was always challenging every step along the way. And I think that all families want to be involved and have so much to offer. They know their children better than anybody else does. And if they only know what to do, then they are, again, growing with their children and offering that kind of support all the way along the way. So I just find it very rewarding, and I think the diversity in our district is just so enjoyable. Just being able to do this work with the staff and with the families and with the students themselves, it's very rewarding.
How about you?
Yeah, really it's very, I'm really happy to work with the Seattle Public School because we have diversity countries, and all the schools, they respect them and they evaluate and they say, we have diversity, we have different groups who have different languages, and we want to learn what their culture is. And I learned a lot of things in Seattle Public School. A lot of principals, they ask me, they say we have the language in our schools, they say either they have Spanish, Vietnamese, Somali, Chinese, and they say we need to outreach this community. How we can outreach? We talk with the communities, we talk with the staff who work in schools, and really they evaluate, and then we ask them how we can work with them. And many years, the system goes from up to down, but nowadays we ask the community how we can work with you. What do you need from us? So in that way, for example, and if I give you a good example, like we have family in connectors, and we have a group of Somalis. They're working, they're learning, and when they're learning, they understand the value of education. And then they ask me, they say, Mohamed, can you able to go with me to school? Now I understand. And we go there, the schools, and when they visit the schools, I can see they want to help the others who didn't really have opportunity. And more they learn the system, the parents, more they can help their kids.
You also have a parent advisory committee. What do you want, I guess, as you move ahead here, I guess, with that advisory committee and the other work that you do in the future?
So talking about a parent advisory committee, that's a group of families who are guiding my work and the work of the superintendent in how we move forward in partnering with our communities. But the real goal for me and my team is to change the world for Seattle Public Schools kids. And we know that a very powerful, viable instructional strategy is to meaningfully work with families as our equal partners in the education of their kids. So if we can build the capacity of families for them to advocate for themselves, we're really teaching them how to fish instead of giving them fish. So in turn, they can help other families, like Mohamed was saying, when we have newly immigrated families to the country, new immigrant families to the country, that the Somali families that we have had here for a while can teach the other families how to navigate the system. And so we grow the capacity of all families exponentially. And we understand and know for what research tells us that when families are informed and they effectively advocate for the kids, academic achievement increases regardless of background, circumstance, zip code, or ethnicity.
Right. And that's what it's all about.
Yes.
Well, thank you for giving us all the insight on this great work and continued success, and thank those parents and people in the community to get involved. That's really what it's all about. And thank you for joining us for this edition of School Beat. I'm Enrique Cerna. We'll see you next time.